Hi, my name is Jonathan Charles, and welcome to SD-WAN. We're going to cover zero-touch provisioning today. This is part one in a two-part section. Basically, we're going to talk about how you can plug in the vEdge devices without actually doing anything to them and having them come up and register to your environment. This is part one of two, so we're going to continue this in another slide deck. So this is part one. So basically what we're going to cover here is how that process works. The ZTP is zero-touch provisioning, which means you basically plug the device in and you don't have to do anything else. You don't have to get into it and configure anything. It just comes on up. And we're also going to describe that Cisco Edge plug-and-play process. So the whole purpose here is that we're going to create an automatic provisioning software as a service. It allows the vEdge devices to join that overlay network automatically. It begins when you power on the edge devices for the first time. For it to work, though, we do need to have the ability to reach public DNS, and you have to reach ztp.viptela.com. So basically, you plug a network cable into an interface that the hardware uses for ZTP, and that's going to be based on hardware model, right? So if you have a vEdge 1000, it's going to be gig 00, vEdge 2000 is gig 20, vEdge 100 is gig 04. Basically, the process is pretty straightforward. We give it via DHCP, we give it an IP address and DNS information. It resolves ztp.viptela.com for the IP address of that server, and that router connects to it. Once it connects to it, it's going to verify it, make sure it's actually loaded in a valid device, and then it's going to send it the IP address of your local vBond orchestrator that's in the same organization as your vEdge router. And then we have initial control communication occurs when the router and the vBond orchestrator comes up, and the router establishes a connection to that orchestrator and sends it the chassis ID and serial number. And then the device is going to pull its software configuration from vManager, and we're going to join that overlay network. And as you can see here, basically, so we're going to do a query up to DNS. This is actually showing a vBond, but it actually is going to come out to the cloud to find the ZTP server, which is going to tell the device, hey, here's where you're supposed to go to your vBond server. All right, and then we're going to go back to your local systems. Okay. All right. You can also do this on premises. Just because we have zero-touch provisioning, and let's say you're local only, if you have on-prem, we can still do this. Now, the only downside here is we're going to require two separate vBond orchestrators to pull this off. The first one's going to be a zero-touch provisioning one, and the second one's going to be your normal vBond. So basically, you do the same thing. You install a vBond server just like we did before, except what you're going to do is you're going to add this one command, this system vBond IP address command, to the system to tell it that this device is going to be working as a zero-touch provisioning server. We still have to upload we have to get the certificate just like normal. And then we upload the CSV file of all of our devices, that .viptela file that has all of our serial numbers and everything else, into this vBond server so that it can act as a ZTP server. Okay. Now, the device is still going to come up and boot and look for ztp.viptela.com, but we don't want it going out to the internet and going to the public version. We want it to go to yours. So what you're going to do on your local DNS server is have an A record that points ztp.viptela.com to this vBond server locally in your network. And then we'll define device templates. You'll note that we haven't mentioned those before. This is your first intro to them. We'll get to them in the next couple of slides. Device templates is how we configure these devices. Okay, so we're going to basically have we're going to go into the vShell on that vBond. So we're going to get into the Unix side of it. We're going to do a cat on that existing file to see what's already there. All right, cat basically means concatenate and lets us do like basically a more on that file. Okay, and then we're going to actually get the new one. So here we are getting the new file. Okay, and each row, well, there's actually the CSV format is pretty straightforward. We're basically going to have serial number, validity, vBond IP address, and the organization name. The most important thing here is the organization name. If that's not verbatim, the devices won't work. Okay? And then we have our ZTP entries. We can show them and see that we've got, here's the vBond IP that we're going to point at. All right? So for the non-wireless routers, the vEdge 100 series, it's going to be gig 04, which is this guy right here. All right, you'll notice it's separated out, and on the wireless router, it's gig 04 as well. So I think those are similar devices. Okay, actually. By the way, just so you're aware, it doesn't work for all devices because out of the box, they're not all configured as VPN 0 and set up for DHCP. So if you were to plug into one of these other device interfaces, they're not pre-configured for zero-touch provisioning. So you're going to want to go to the interfaces specific for your device. Also on the VEdge 1000, it's gig 00, and on the 2000, it's gig 20. Okay. So as we said, we haven't talked about device templates yet, but this is one of the examples of one. So here we are assigning a device template to the ZTP. All right. Because we have to assign it, we have to tell the device something, how it's going to connect to the network. Okay. And this is where we're going to do that. Basically, we're in a template field section here, and we're actually assigning devices to the template. Okay. So for C-Edge devices, it's a bit different, the Cisco Edge devices. Basically, we're going to be running something called a plug-and-play process instead of a zero-touch provisioning. It's similar, but there's a little bit of more stuff that has to go on in the back end of your environment. So basically, you're going to create an order on CCW, the Cisco Commerce Workspace, all right? And the order is going to be bound to your customer's smart account, okay? So we're going to create that order. It gets bound to the smart account. The smart account is going to get linked back to the plug-and-play vOrchestrator, okay? So these two are talking to each other, in which case, so your account for your organization includes the devices that you ordered, okay? And this is basically a way to trigger that create that overlay information, the organization name for that new customer. So when you start buying stuff, we create this, and this environment gets built for you, okay? And then this is synchronized as well. So as you order more stuff, it's automatically synchronized into the plug-and-play cloud service and to all the ZTP servers. And it's responsible for onboarding all those C-Edge routers. And then those ZTP servers are going to be used for to onboard all the VEdge routers as well. And vManage will be able to synchronize all that smart account information directly from that plug-and-play cloud service and receive that WAN list automatically. After those are successfully enrolled, they integrate with vManage down here. And they'll just show up in your vManage portal. All right. So again, we have to provide internet access with DHCP and via DHCP and with DNS. We pre-provision the router in vManage with the uploading of the WAN list. We load the SD-WAN image to the iOS router boot flash. Remember, we're going to have to boot up that device on the new image. Set that boot statement so it reboots. And then we're going to execute the command that requests platform software SD-WAN software reset so that we turn the router into SD-WAN. Okay? And once it boots up, the plug-and-play process will start, and the router will be onboarded like any other device, VEdge device with the standard ZTP process. The key thing is this, is that the Cisco routers, when you buy a Cisco 4000 router, is going to have regular iOS on it, and we need to get the SD-WAN software on it. We can't use the iOS image to make it connect to zero-touch provisioning and then connect to VEdge. We have to actually still load the VEdge software on it. By the way, so because it's a Cisco Edge device instead of a VEdge device, we are not going to be connecting to ztp.tele.com. We're connecting to devicehelper.cisco.com. That's the Cisco plug-and-play service. Okay? And then after that, it links it over to the ZTP process. So the router is going to reach out to vBond. It performs the SD-WAN. The router is going to connect to devicehelper.cisco.com, present its serial file, and it's going to get all that SD-WAN information, the vBond information, organization name, etc., just like any other device. Okay? It's then going to reach out and connect to vBond just the way it would on any other system. And vBond will send that vManage IP to the router. All right? And these are each of those steps there. The router then is going to connect to vManage over a secure tunnel. And vManage is going to send the full configuration to the router. And then the router connects vSmart over a secure tunnel. After authentication, we're in the SD-WAN fabric. Licensing will require a smart account. So if you don't have a smart account, we have to create one. The smart account is going to belong to the entity that owns the device. And we can set up a bunch of CCO accounts to connect to it. So let's say your organization's acme.com, right? We can have a bunch of users that are assigned to be able to do managing on that, but all the devices would be owned by acme.com. And acme.com would be the smart account, and then we can have virtual accounts under that, okay? That way, devices are actually owned by the account and not by individual users. Because if they're owned by an individual user, then we need that user to do everything, and that's kind of tedious. The owner of that smart account is the one who has the contractual relationship with Cisco, and you can select that manager of the virtual account pretty much whoever you want it to be. If you're an MSP, you can be the manager of the organization, and then you can have the actual customer as the manager of the individual virtual accounts. And remember, the devices do belong to the smart account, and you can move them between the virtual accounts as needed. Okay, and for managing that smart account, you can set whatever you want those virtual accounts created explicitly or based on transaction. Some operations of the smart account automatically create a virtual account. In virtual accounts, you explicitly create a new virtual account. You can also see a list of the existing virtual accounts, and you can edit them by clicking on them. Okay, over here. So if you're an MSP with a lot of sub-customers, you can create virtual accounts for each of those so that each of your end users can manage their particular environment. So the whole purpose is this. You want to go through the Cisco Commerce Workspace order flow and the plug-and-play portal, and that way everything will be automatically associated to the vBond controller and pushed out to the vOrchestrator. And if you're cloud-hosted, well, once you place the order on CCW, you assign the smart account and the virtual account to the order, and that's optional. But once you do that, everything automatically links. Okay? And then the customer can log into vManage and then sync devices from their smart account. All right? And basically, they'd click this button, and the devices would just be brought in automatically. If you're on-prem, it's a little different. Okay? You're going to need the help from a Cisco sales engineer, because they're not automatically associated with the vBond that you deploy locally. You're going to have to enter the vBond information manually in the plug-and-play cloud service. So basically, you would be going to the cloud service, telling them where your vBond is so that they can push that information to you. Okay? And so this is where it's saying that plug-and-play doesn't know specifically about your vBond. Basically, you're going to go and add a profile and declare your vBond server here. Hit next. And a new controller profile and choose controller type as vBond. And then once you do that, you add your organization name, etc. Remember, the organization name is not negotiable. Once you set the organization name, that's what you're using for all of your devices. You're also going to give it your root CA, because that way it'll automatically push the root CA to the device. Remember, because you're locally, you're not using the public certificate authority. If you're using a local CA, we want to make sure that root certificate gets to the device, because that's critical for all the connectivity. Okay. Also, I mean, you don't have, this is optional, but here's the thing. If you're going to end up loading your own local CA on the devices anyway, you might as well do it here so that it happens automatically. You don't have to manually copy some device over to the vShell. Saves you a step. Basically review your settings and hit done. And then the new vBond will show up as under your controller profiles here. Okay. Basically, the whole point of zero-touch provisioning is that I can buy devices from all my remote locations, verify that this serial number is going to that site, set up a profile inside vManage for that device so that it comes up with the right settings, ship it to the device, or drop ship it to the device, have them just plug it into the right port, and it'll come up automatically. The whole purpose here is that I don't want to have to bring them to a central location, manually configure a bunch of them, and then have to send them off to the places they're supposed to go. Also, alternatively, I can have them shipped wherever they go and then have the person read me the serial number, and I know that one goes to that site. And I don't need someone there with a console cable to plug into the device. All right. Thank you very much. This is all, of course, part 1 of the ZTP. Stay tuned for part 2.